This a we we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This a we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This a me name is Ufa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head and the Belize and the lobby. To no Guatemala. This a we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This a me name is Ufa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head and the Belize and the lobby. Because patriots, all people who love them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. This a we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This a we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This a me name is Ufa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head and the Belize and the lobby. Because patriots, all people who love them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. This a we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This a
Brother Akamatota, and we were supposed to have two guests this morning, but one of the guests couldn't make it, and the other guest there has some technical difficulties, but he's here. So our other guest is Brother Ethan Panton. Brother Panton, he'll have to talk to us through WhatsApp because I don't know the work. Brother Panton, you want to come back up on the screen? We could stay up on the screen, I don't know if we could do both, but anyway, so we have Brother Ethan Panton, past president of the Belize Energy Workers Union in Belize. Good morning, Brother Ako.
Morning, Sister YaYa. Good morning to our listening audience and to all workers throughout the Caribbean, Central America, and Belize. Today is May 3rd, and May 1st is usually observed as International Workers' Day. So this is a very timely discussion this morning on workers and the importance of International Workers' Day, or May Day, as it is called in so many parts.
Thanks, Brother Akka, for Mekwe. Listeners, viewers streaming online know one time what they could expect for the next 90 minutes. We are on XTV, a local channel, live streaming on XTV Belize YouTube channel and XTV Belize Facebook page. Brother Ethan Panton, good morning. Morning, brother, up on the air. Brother Panton? Brother Panton? Okay, I could hear the birds there if I live, but I hear the top. Brother Panton, you're on the air. We're greeting you. Good morning. All right, that didn't work out. So until we could figure out Brother Panton's audio, we'll keep talking. Brother Ako. Workers in the Caribbean. What the your recollection of the value of workers in the Caribbean region?
It's a very simple and yet complicated question in some way. The history of the working class, let me start by saying, the history of the working class in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean, where I'm from and the wider Caribbean, is not a history that corresponds with other histories of other countries, in the sense that the workers who first came here to the Caribbean came as enslaved. And it's a point that I think people forget to mention. We speak about the enslaved, but the enslaved were actually workers who were not paid for their wages. And then other groups came to the Caribbean in the forms of indentureship, Indians, Portuguese, and Chinese. So the history of our working class in the Caribbean would have been different from the history of the working class in Europe or other parts of the world, especially in Europe. So we have a different history and therefore must have a different interpretation of how we view this whole working class struggle. Even after chattel slavery ended and we got emancipation, workers were still exploited in the sense that there were no proper arrangements to satisfy wages and so on and so forth. So this history is very important to understand where our historical roots emerge in terms of our working class in the Caribbean. Now we move to the current situation, the question you asked, and what we have is workers who have moved into industry and various segments of the economy. And for a very long time, we had very strong unions in the Caribbean, which bargained on behalf of workers. In fact, the unions played a critical role in the anti-colonial movement throughout the Caribbean. And you would find that a number of the political parties in the Caribbean emerged from trade unions. In places like Jamaica, in St. Vincent, Barbados, you had the two parties emerged from labor because labor was critical in the pursuit of justice, of wages, and of freedom from colonization for the populations in the Caribbean. And so this is another important part of the working class history of the Caribbean. In Trinidad, for example, even though our first set of anti-colonial events were led by labor leaders, eventually it is political parties outside of labor who led us into independence. So this is where we are in the Caribbean, and to a large extent, the power of the working class is being diminished in every single Caribbean territory. In the 1950s and 60s, the governments that came to power, especially those that came after independence, a lot of them, even though supported by workers, instituted policies and laws that did not serve the interest of the workers. And that pattern existed throughout the Caribbean. And in some instances, in the workers' pursuit of better wages against multinationals and other conglomerates that control the economy, the state unleashed violence, and we have had a couple of them in Trinidad and other parts of the Caribbean. So this is where we are. Today we observe International Labor Day. And I would say this, that, well, not today, but May 1st, actually. And I would say this, that the workers' movement, the trade unions, have been so weakened by laws, by legislation, sometimes by the betrayal of the unions who collaborated, the union leaders who collaborated with the state to sell out workers, in the process denying them, just wages and so on and so forth. So we are not in a very good state right now relative to trade unions and the treatment of workers in the Caribbean. And I can elaborate on that a little later.
Thanks, Brother Ako. We have Brother Ethan Panton, past president of the Belize Energy Workers Union in Belize, on WhatsApp because he's having audio difficulties with the Zoom. Brother Panton, good morning.
Good morning, Belize. Good morning, Sister YaYa. Good morning, the brother.
Brother Ako.
Brother Ako from across the ocean.
Yes. Brother Panton, you could tell us, if you could remember what time period you'd been the president of the Belize Energy Workers Union in Belize?
Sure. It was a very short period between 2002 to 2004 because the company was going through a transition. And similar to what the brother said, just a few minutes ago, where they weaken the trade union by threat, and you have officers who tell them what happened to us. They use YaYa method. They just take the strong president and promote them. So at the time, Brother Coleman was the president, and he was promoted to management. And under the policy, he could no longer sit as president of the union. So by virtue of that, I was automatically appointed interim president of the union. And this is something that has been happening for decades. It probably still happening at YaYa and no longer there. But while I was there, it happened to two other presidents before Brother Butler. It happened with Brother Raymond Shep, and it happened with Brother Julian Torres, where they were very powerful and they were promoted to management staff, and hence they could no longer leave the executive body of the police and the workers union.
Is that legal, Brother Panther, that a company could choose that an employee who has been promoted to management could no longer be part of a union? Do you know if that's legal based on Belize law and members of a union working for a company?
It's not, because the laws of Belize allows anyone, every working class, to unionize. So it's not a legal process. However, it's an ongoing battle from then, and it still goes on even as we speak.
Wouldn't there be an expectation that the umbrella organization, National Trade Union Congress of Belize, that would be something that the umbrella organization would take up?
Yes, they have, and with the public service union, most of the senior government officials, what they do, they have a union that is comprised mainly of managers. The Association of Senior Public Service Managers, APSM.
Okay. Now, brother, you heard what Brother Akko said earlier, and you got a living example that's true, that unions get weakened. I mean, throughout the Caribbean, the unions have no teeth, to be honest. And so since Friday was Workers' Day, one of my concerns is, one, we have low union membership in Belize, and besides that, that means how much workers don't have representation. And as long as workers don't have adequate, genuine representation, then workers are exposed for, just because of the capitalist, racist economic system, forget chance, which consistently happen. So, Brother Akko, you know anywhere in the Caribbean where everyday people organize who are not within unions? We just had that experience this past week. We had talked about it. Or if you remember, Brother Panton, before this past week, when people who were not part of a union organized in their own interests and made gains.
Well, from the history of Belize, as I have to come back to the brother too. People come together, the labor force came together, and from those labor forces were formed political parties. And that is exactly the issue that leads to the most popular political party, the present government. The sad and part of this is that we have today the bulk of our government not being unionized. Our country has been bombarded with modern day sweatshop slavery in the form of what they call. I was made to leave on Labor Day. Somebody delivered a presentation which stated that there are 16,000 people in this country. None of them are men. That represents a large population of this nation, and not one single of people have union representation. So we have regressed practically since the trade union started ignoring the issues that people.
Right, and as Brother Akko has said, really, when you have workers organizing in their own interests, they're resisting. So from during the time of enslavement, you have enslavement revolts, that the workers resisting. So from at the point when legal chattel enslavement ended in the English-speaking Caribbean, August 1st, 1838, people continue, everyday people, they never have no colonial papers, called degrees, continue to organize in their best interest and resist. And like Brother Akko said, that from out of that you had the trade unions. So Brother Akko, and I know on the trade unionship there were some gains, but what are the lessons for we learn, you that think, Brother Akko, in hindsight, from when people organize in their own interest as opposed to when they make other people lead the organizing their interests, such as trade unions? What lessons we could learn from that?
Well, the first thing I think people must recognize, and which is not being debated in the Caribbean right now, is you have class issues in the Caribbean. There's a working class, and the working class does not identify sometimes enough as a working class. What we have in the Caribbean is a kind of what I call it. Let me kind of give you the Trinidad context. There is a phrase we use in Trinidad called all our ways one. And what that means is that we don't have class or race distinction, but that is not true. That is a narrative perpetrated by imperialism and capitalism and the local capitalist elite to neutralize any attempts at working people and other groups who are disenfranchised organizing around their own class and their own issues. So the idea is that the society belongs to all of us and so all are we is one. But in reality, that is not the case. The case is that there are economic elites, there are political elites, and there are social elites who have certain kind of advantages, vestiges sometimes of colonization, vestiges sometimes of their connection to the old order of colonization, like those who are light and white, and so on. So there is this, what I call narrative that has been perpetrated, and which I think has diluted the identification of workers as a class, right? So that's something we have to identify. We have to understand that in the Caribbean, there has always been a capitalist class, always. And we do not call them out for what they are. After the what they call the settlers, the British or French or the Spanish left, there were those who were the descendants of these people who chose to remain in the Caribbean. Some of them went back to what they call the so-called mother country or the metropolitan country. But there were those who remained, who identified as local, but who maintained the same colonial structure, the same colonial economic relations. But because they were born here, born in the region, they felt identifiable with the culture, you know, of the region. But that did not mean they would not exploit us. That did not mean they did not identify. And I think, unfortunately for the working class in the Caribbean, that distinction has not been made. Now, the question you ask about, did people organize, I think if I understood it correctly, outside of trade unions? Yes, people did organize outside of trade unions. One of the biggest movements, I mean, if you look at what we call the Black Power movement in the Caribbean, it was a movement of many different sectors of the society. There was labor, there was the unemployed, there was university student, and that became the most significant movement in post-independent Trinidad and Tobago. And it did achieve a number of changes socially, economically at one time, to the point that the movement forced the government to introduce a number of things, including the 40-hour work week, including things like better pensions for workers, and most of all, the nationalization of key sectors of the economy. And in fact, there's a document that suggests that outside of Cuba, Trinidad and Tobago at one point had the most state-controlled economic enterprises. And this was directly a result or a reaction by the state to the demands of the movement of 1970, which was not exclusively a labor movement. But what is happening now is that those things are being reversed. Now, one of the things workers demanded was a 40-hour, the unions demanded was a 40-hour work week. I remember as a boy growing up, my uncle worked in the oil fields, and they had a 46-hour, they work half day on Saturday. The unions is who fought to get this 40-hour work week. Proper pensions, proper health schemes, housing schemes, and so on. And what is happening now is that with the weakness of the unions, the weakening of the unions, a lot of these gains that came from the 60s and 70s are now being reversed. And so when you had unions bargaining for permanent work, what you have now is even the state now is implementing contract work. So you do not give the worker security of tenure. They don't have job security in any significant way. They give you a 2-year contract or a 3-year contract. In some cases, no pensions. They say that that's your responsibility. So the unions, the weakening of the unions have negatively impacted workers and the working class in the Caribbean. And that is something that we have to just, you see, it is not just, it was a planned thing, right? Under what is called the neoliberal model of economic development. Which is what was introduced by the Thatcher and the Reagan era. It's called neoliberalism. And neoliberalism launched a very vicious attack on the unions. As it began in the United Kingdom, which set the template or the example for how unions should be treated under Margaret Thatcher. Then Reagan followed that by dismantling the workers who worked in the airport, the air controller. They struck for better wages and better conditions. And Reagan, rather than let the unions negotiate, he fired all of them and brought in the military and to run the air traffic. So this has been an assault on workers, right? Which was a reaction to what happened during the New Deal under Roosevelt. What a lot of people don't understand is that the New Deal under Roosevelt, President Roosevelt, which introduced things like Social Security and other benefits to people and workers, it was influenced by the workers. Eugene Debs was a communist, and other workers and other unions. So a lot of these things were forced by the state, forced upon the state by the demands of workers. However, the capitalists were not very happy with it. And in fact, one of the narratives of that era is that when Roosevelt introduced the New Deal, the capitalists said, we don't want this. So Roosevelt said, well, okay, you don't want this. What you're going to have is riots, and they are going to take what you have. So they agreed with him reluctantly, but was always working in the background to reverse those things. And this is what we have now, not just in the Caribbean, which is part of the global economy, but in the entire global economy. And this is where we are, where workers' rights are every day being diminished, where, for example, in Atlanta, where I live, there was a study done which showed that the average worker, in order to achieve a living wage, had to work 80 hours a week. In other words, even though they didn't change the law, they limit the wages to the point that you cannot live on the wages you are making. And so workers have 2 and 3 jobs in order to survive. And this is what is happening in the Caribbean right now.
Thanks, Brother Akko. And I appreciate all that historical knowledge. Brother Panton, what would be your comment to that? Because we don't know for our stories, so-called history, why we keep finding ourselves in this cycle of not knowing how to organize, how to hold leaders accountable when they fail. What do you think that the relevance of knowing, like in Belize? So you had enslavement, you had revolts, you had worker strikes in I think it was in the late 1800s, in 1919, and then you have in the 1930s, you had it's called the Labor and Unemployment Association, led by Antonio Soberanes. So because we don't know for we story, political parties take up the narrative and tell for their story as if that's the only story of how we came to be. They don't tell you how everyday workers became knowledgeable and organized and won gains. They pick up the story pretty much that trade unionism, when some people tell you the trade union co-opted working organization. So what they are 2 cents for the value of history and workers' rights, Brother Panton?
I'm
This
not
is
hearing
a
him.
learning experience, and this event is all about you guys. Give it a chance. Maybe a competition you partake in sparks a passion in you never knew you had. I had no idea how much I love coding until I actually explored it. We need more girls in IT.
In Billy's analysis supported by UNICEF highlights that girls between 15 and 24 use computers less frequently than boys.
I'm muted to say, YaYa.
Regardless of whether they live in urban or
I
rural
was
areas,
interrupted
regardless
and
of
told
their,
we were on break, and I didn't
family
call a break, so I don't know how we
situation,
could be at break. I'll get ready.
situation, or even their level of education. This gap matters because digital access today determines opportunities for tomorrow.
Be Like a Girl was never just about technology. It was about creating a space where girls can see themselves differently, where they can realize they don't have to shrink to fit into spaces. They can grow and transform them, where they understand that they are not just users of technology, but creators, innovators, and leaders.
Electricity is essential for everyday life, but behind every outlet, a lot is happening to bring you safe, reliable, and sustainable energy. Let's start at the beginning. Independent power producers across Belize generate electricity using a mix of renewable and non-renewable resources. Electricity travels across a network of high-voltage transmission lines capable of transmitting electricity across long distances. Electricity then reaches your nearest substation, where it is adjusted to a lower voltage, making it safe to travel on the distribution lines you see in your community. From there, electricity makes its final journey from the distribution lines to your home, providing you with safe and reliable power when you need it. We continue to serve you.
Smart for everybody. Smart leading everything. Smart give you everything. Smart offer everything. Smart give you everything. North to the east and the south and the west. Smart are the best. Darling, double up my data and give me all the text. In fact, give me a plan for my family. Unlimited calls, so me like it. And Smart make everybody feel happy. Bringing people together, me want it now. Smart got love for everybody. Me want my Smart plan. Want it right now. Me want my Smart plan. Want it right now. More bundles, data plan. Me want my smartphone, internet in my hand. Call me want my Smart plan. Want it right now. Smart. Stay connected. Stay happy.
As a small business, I started to attend pop-up shops like many other businesses, and we found that our customers wanted to pay by card and not cash. I went to Atlantic Bank, and immediately, without a problem, it's like, yes, you can have a POS system. That POS system we now use in-house, and we can also take it countrywide wherever we are. They were willing to take the time. They were willing to be patient with us as we grew our business, and that, for us, that meant the world.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together. Every great job starts at Brothers Habet with the best supplies and the right support, including free delivery on site, so you can focus on the job. Brothers Habet, working with contractors since 1983.
Guatemala, Flamino, this time we have here. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This time we the fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. Flamino. This time we the fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This time we the fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. Flamino. This time we the fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This time we the fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. Flamino. This time we the fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because
Belize wakes up connected to opportunity. And across our country, the work to keep Belize.
we the fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people.
YaYa, Brother Akko, and we have Brother Ethan Panton, past president of the Belize Energy Workers Association. Brother Panton, you mean at the middle of telling we, answering our question we asked about the relevance of knowing our histories, our stories, as relates to workers' rights in Belize. If you don't mind, come back on the top again for me, please, brother.
Not giving up.
So, brother, I could say, like, seriously, most people that are members of union pretty much engage when for them money threatened or if they feel like they get terminated. But most union members are not truly knowledgeable and are active members. So, like, me and are usually just ceremony, really. Like, kind of rent a crowd because, they're like 12 to 13 members of the National Trade Union Congress of Belize. I think yesterday they may have 5. And it's like every year that the same performance. There's no substance, and clearly, with the NTUCB not taking a position with the Belize Communication Workers for Justice and the Belize Energy Workers for Justice, independent groups who the hold their former employer accountable for not paying their severance. When the umbrella organization, which the again 12 or 13 unions, and their unions could have chosen if they wanted to be in solidarity with what we call the green shirt and the white shirt. And I always give credit to the Christian Workers Union president, Sister Leonora Flowers, for coming out in her Christian Workers Union shirt at events that the green shirt and white shirt have. But I feel like that time, Brother Panton and Brother Akko, listeners and viewers, we just have to start out the truth. Unions have failed. There was a time when unions worked, but for a long time, unions have failed. Union leaders get buttered up by political leadership, by whoever influenced them, got power and influence. And so they're not genuinely looking out for the interests of workers. What are you going to say about that, Brother Panton?
I don't know.
Love them country bad, love them homeland. We'll never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, love them homeland. We'll never give it up to another nation. This have to we we have to. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This have to we have to. Nobody do it to no Guatemala. This have to.
Okay, we'll have all kind of technical difficulties. Now I'm being told they're not hearing the guest on the TV. Brother Akko, we'll go ahead and finish out this segment because I don't want to stop the show. We already had issues in the first segment. What Brother Panton was saying is that the National Trade Union Congress of Belize, on May 1st, there was a Labor Day rally organized by the National Trade Union Congress of Belize, NTUCB. And I have been holding them, along with Christine Perriott, accountable for not being in solidarity with the former employees of the Belize Telemedia Limited and Belize Electricity Limited. And so in holding the union leadership accountable, because the NTUCB, the National Trade Union Congress of Belize, is the umbrella organization of about 12 or 13 other unions. Brother Panton went out to the labor rally on Friday, May 1st. And some of the green shirts were out there, including Sister Derla Steen, who is one of the original founders of the Belize Energy Workers Union in the late 70s. I think she said she was 23, and now she's in her late 60s. She gave a very moving message. She was moved to tears thinking about her age, her health issues, other elders who are struggling and in pain. And Brother Panton just said they lost two of their brothers to a traffic accident yesterday. And so they were making the point of the failure of leadership. Brother Panton said that Sister Durla held the leadership of NTUCB accountable, who said that they choose their battles, and while they're choosing their battles, people are dying. Now, NTUCB chose to send out a press release about prescriptions are now needed for contraceptive. They never have no problem with them bureaucracy organizing in a short order and sending out that press release. So at this point, NTUCB don't need to send nothing else because they've already said it by their action. They're not in solidarity with people who are not unionized. Respect is due. That's the whole history I remember, at the whole I want to tell the story about, every time I want to fail Belizean workers when they unionize. I take back that chat from me. And I said, we are at the point where we have to tell the truth, Brother Akko and Brother Panton. The unwillingness to people say in the public, these leaders have failed us. Brother Akko, what are your memory of that? Of people they are saying in a private, but they now say in a public that these leaders, whoever they are, they could be our parents, they could be adults, they could be church leaders or faith leaders, they could be union leaders, they could be political leaders. People are unwilling, not for scandalize nobody, not for being mean, but just to talk truth to power. These people have failed us and they continue to fail us, and we the people have to hold ourselves responsible for accept it. Brother Akko?
So, Sister YaYa, what we are experiencing in the Caribbean is a wholesale failure of our institutions, not just the unions. The political parties have failed, the security services. We are experiencing institutional collapse in the Caribbean. And every action by the leadership, whether it be the political leadership or the economic leadership, is to put a plaster on the sore that has gone beyond the requirement of a plaster. So the union is just part of that whole thing. One of the things, statements that you hear regularly in Trinidad and Tobago is that the unions, especially the oil workers union, which was the most militant and progressive union in the country, that the unions moved oil workers into the middle class. And now the oil workers do not believe that they belong to the working class. To the point now that this current government, which is one of the most backward governments in the history of Trinidad, relative to its total subservience to U.S. interests, right? A key component of this government is the Oilfield Workers Trade Union. Two of their senior members are ministers in the government. And then the other union, which is the PSA, which is a major government union, one of their leaders or past leader is the Minister of Labor. You see? So you have a serious conflict of interest that unions are now aligned with political parties, right? Are in the political system, and therefore by their very presence there are compromised. Now the brother raised an issue earlier about promoting workers. Any leader that represented the workers' interests in a very consistent and principled manner, what the company would do is to promote them. But when you got that promotion, you're in a situation where they made you sign certain contracts. Once you're in management, you could no longer, like I know when I worked, you had what was called the staff. They would promote a labor leader to the staff, a union to the staff. Once you became a member of the staff, there's a contract you signed that you could no longer be in a union or represent workers in that way. So the company used these methods, and you have to understand it in the sense that sometimes a guy is a sister, a brother or sister, comes from a poor family, has aspirations, like everyone else, and so you are offered this job, better wages, and so on and so forth. And most people will succumb to that temptation, if you want to call it that. I mean, it's a logical outcome of wanting to do better. And so what we have as a result is that by these people behaving or accepting these positions, they compromise the institution of the trade union. And so what we have, in addition to the collapse of the political parties, you now have the unions also in a state where the unions in a state of collapse. So in Trinidad, for example, we have two labor unions, one which runs one set of union, and another runs another set of union, and both of them, one is called NATUC, National Trade Union Center, and the other one, off the top of my head, I don't remember the other one right now. But they are two distinct bodies, and they split or split. And one group was aligned to the state in a very overt way, and one was supposed to be, leftist and so on. But when you look at their behavior, they're more or less the same. And that is the tragedy of the Caribbean right now. All our institutions are collapsing. All our leadership is in compromised positions. And so people have to understand there is a need for new approaches, and there is a need for new institutions that could represent the interests of the population in a different way. The political parties no longer represent the interests of the people who vote for them. They don't. They represent the interests of economic elites, international elites, and the local comprador class. So that's our reality in the Caribbean.
Respect. Let me see if Brother Panton, say something, Brother Akko. Tell me if you can hear Brother Panton.
Yes, what the brother said is 100% correct.
I'm hearing him.
Okay. Good. They're hearing you now, Brother Panton. I want to come back, Brother Panton, and ask you your thoughts on the point Brother Akko made about class. You know, you have that believes people might say you have. Okay, so they have indigent. That at the bottom of the barrel. You can't get poorer than that. You're indigent. Then you have people who are impoverished. Then you have working class impoverished people. Then you have middle class. Then you have upper class. Then you have stinking, dirty, rich, predatory class with just legacy money for generation. Oftentimes, I believe we might not look upon it like that, but within the let's say within trade unionism, there's a class issue like Brother Akko, you just said. You have a working class person, get a job, make a money, work them way up, get a management. Now I could make more money. That either I want to make more money and better me and my family, and I represent workers no more, or represent workers and make a little bit of money. And that's the one real choice you have to make. What you got to say about your experience as a past president of the Belize Energy Workers Union, the Belize, as well as you may work at different levels of the executive? What you got to say about class within unionism, the Belize?
It is a definite reality in Belize. Everywhere you go, that is what is happening. I experienced it. I was promoted when I was president to a management position, and I was told, Ethan, you got to get on the bus. Otherwise, when the bus leaves, you will not be on it. My response was, my brother, I'm on Banya. I don't want to leave here to go to Canada, because the Canadians were in control of BL at the time. Those were my examples. And so time passed, and I was demoted back to a non-management employee, and I celebrated because the dirty mess that they wanted me to do as a manager, I couldn't do it to my people. So it's a real fight, but it takes integrity on the part of the unionists to say no to certain things.
When you don't make a union, when you don't make a union president, did you sit at any boards? Because that's another perk too, Brother Akko. You get to sit down for certain boards, and you get certain stipend. You went by any board, brother, when you don't be the president of the Belize Energy Workers Union, the Belize?
Yes, I was on the working board, and that board worked for free.
None of the other boards there. You don't know where I would have said that.
I didn't want any of those boards because I knew what they claimed. I sat on the committee that was responsible for negotiation of benefits and salary adjustment for the company. And under my tenure, we negotiated with flooring for anybody coming into the company. At one point, BEL was I won't say the highest, but we were top 3 in this region when it comes to salary and benefit. I don't know what state we are at presently, but under my tenure, we were not less than 3 in Central American program when it comes to wages and benefits. Anybody coming into the company to work were guaranteed not less than $14,400
a year.
Yeah, and that would have been 20 years ago. It would have been somewhere around 2000, between 2002 and 2003. Well, 2001 to 2003, somewhere in that vicinity. That was the movie.
Go ahead.
So for today, having these different salary scale in government entity where they pay people under $12,000, I mean, it's ridiculous. 20 years ago, flooring was 44, and this was for an apprenticeship program where you were not necessarily a permanent employee, but you were going through a program, and when you pass all 4 levels, you get promoted. However, even though you came in at that level, you do a program every year. You got 2 weeks for the program, and upon passing that program, you are guaranteed your raise anywhere between 6 to 10% salary increase. So even though you are at that level, within 4 years time when you completed the program, you would have already been making $28,000 a year.
Respect. I appreciate them details because you usually hear this level of conversation. It matters. Brother Akko, one other thing would bother me. Why would, not that you don't know the answer, but I want to hear 2 cents. Any state agree to paying workers the minimum, like pay them the least? Like, why would you do that to somebody when most of them not get paid the least? What is minimum wage business? If you share with Brother Akko, we have another 7 minutes. But minimum wage versus living wages.
Well, let me put it here this way. Before I answer that question, let me make this statement answer the issue of being on boards. That was a trick to co-opt workers. When the unions made a demand for participation in the process, what they did was say, okay, we'll have a representative of the union on the board. But what in fact happened is that it co-opted workers and corrupted some of the union representatives. But now they hobnobbing with the big boys, the capitalists, and they forgot sometimes what their role was, right? The other thing in Trinidad, for example, we established an industrial court. And in that industrial court, you have judges who are workers, who are shop stewards and so on, and they made them judges without any legal. All they have is an understanding of industrial law based on unions. So it appears in many instances that the workers have representatives in the industrial court, but a lot of the judges there have become hacks. In fact, the head of the industrial court they refused to renew her contract because she did not go along with an edict that the government wanted. So you have situations where these institutions are sham institutions set up to give you the image. I call them performative democracy, right? It's a performance. So to give you the impression that, yeah, you have workers' power, but in reality you don't. Because the only way you can have workers' power is for the state itself to be controlled by the workers. And that's not going to happen. The state, as it is organized now, is controlled, organized, and run by big business and the economic elites. Now, to answer that, what was the question you answered just now?
Minimum wage, living wage.
Minimum wage. Now, what is happening, you see, capitalism is what someone describes as an adaptive tendency. So progressive forces around the world, when they looked at the kind of wealth that was being produced. And remember, the billionaires only have wealth because of workers. They like to make you believe it's some great strategic skill they have. They only have their wealth because of workers. Workers work and they produce, and so these business people and captains of industry, they benefit from it. So you had a situation where in many factories around the world that were producing high-end clothes and all these, and people in the metropolitan countries, in major capitalist countries in the US and Europe, people were looking at these things and saying, but listen, you have these people working for starvation wages. And a movement developed to demand a living wage. And this living wage was based on certain economic indicators. But the reality is, the price of goods is not controlled by the worker. So you may get a living wage of $10. And what does the employer, the capitalist, do? He raises the cost of the goods. So your living wage no longer guarantees you the same goods that it could have bought 5 years before, because they have the power to raise prices at any time. And since they control the state through different forms, coercion, bribery, and so on, the living wage is become irrelevant. This is why, workers, as I said earlier, now have to work 2 and 3 jobs in order really to have a living wage, right? The living wage in reality as it exists now is not based on the realities of the life of people. So what we have in reality is the working poor. That's what you really have. And as some people used to say when I was in Atlanta, they used to say JOB, job means just over broke. That's what your job means, because you're always fighting to make ends meet. Now, 30, 40 years ago, a worker had enough money to save a little bit, send a child to college, get a good car, and had health insurance and so on. That was a real living wage, because you could have done things. In fact, I was talking with a friend whose father died and he was at work and left her property, right? He bought property even though he was just an electrician. That was a real living wage, because the capitalist system did not operate then as it does now. Now we have things like stockholders, shareholders, stockholders, and so on. So when the enterprise makes money, let's say it makes $100, and in the past it was just the worker and the major owners. They're calculating maybe 30% of the profits went to workers, so that there were benefits workers could get. Now you have the shareholder, you have the stockholder, you have so many, you have the investor, and all of those people, money come before the worker. And when they get their money, then the bankers, and then when all of them get their money, whatever is left is then given to the workers, which is what Thatcher and Reagan called the trickle-down theory of economics. So a little bit is supposed to trickle down to the worker, and that trickle is not a trickle anymore. It's not even a drop at this point in time, because workers can no longer in any meaningful way live on the wages that they are getting because of how the economic system is organized, and because the state is weak. It cannot act on behalf of the citizens, and the state works and operates on behalf of the capitalists and those who control the economy.
Thanks, Brother Akko. We have to go to break, Brother Panton. When we come back after break, I want to give 2 cents per minimum wage, living wage, and what Brother Akko just say. We're going to break. I think I know what happened, but I'm thinking those in the studio should have seen it. When I got off break,
the work to keep Belize connected continues. SMART continues expanding our network across the country, bringing stronger coverage to more communities. With recent service enhancements in areas at Blue Creek and Progresso, Belize City, Orange Walk, and more on the way. We're bringing education closer to home, empowering entrepreneurs to grow their businesses.
When the job calls, you need a truck that works as hard as you do. Strong, reliable, and built for the load. The Jack Freight Truck gets the job done. From the lumberyard to the work site, power your business with confidence. I can count on Jack to get the job done right.
Belize wakes up connected to opportunity. And across our country, the work to keep Belize connected continues. SMART continues expanding our network across the country, bringing stronger coverage to more communities. With recent service enhancements in areas at Blue Creek and Progresso, Belize City, Orange Walk, and more on the way. We're bringing education closer to home, empowering entrepreneurs to grow their businesses, supporting industries that drive our economy, and keeping families connected wherever life takes them. With every expansion, we are investing in the infrastructure that moves Belize forward. Because connection isn't just about signal, it's about opportunity, progress, and the future we are building together. SMART, bringing people together.
This is a learning experience, and this event is all about you guys. Give it a chance. Maybe a competition you partake in sparks a passion in you never knew you had. I had no idea how much I love coding until I actually explored it. We need more girls in IT.
In Belize, analysis supported by UNICEF highlights that girls between 15 and 24 use computers less frequently than boys. Regardless of whether they live in urban or rural areas, regardless of their family situation, their economic situation, or even their level of education. This gap matters because digital access today determines opportunities for tomorrow.
Be Like a Girl was never just about technology. It was about creating a space where girls can see themselves differently, where they can realize they don't have to shrink to fit into spaces. They can grow and transform them, where they understand that they are not just users of technology, but creators, innovators, and leaders.
People don't travel with cash anymore. People would stop and they want to do a coffee tour, they want to buy coffee, but people don't have cash with them. Online banking facilitated a lot of what we do. I don't have to run to town and I have to use fuel and other expenses. Atlantic Bank actually approached us. They facilitated us with a bank account, which is something that we didn't have in hand, and then with a POS machine. I sit and sip my good cup of coffee and do payments.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together.
Guatemala, this time we have here. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master, talking about the head on the Belizean dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. Country bad love them homeland. We'll never give it up to another nation. This time we Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master, talking about the head on the Belizean dollar because no Guatemala. This time we have here. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. No, tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master, talking because patriots, all people who love them country bad, bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation. Them country bad, bad, love them homeland, will never give it up to another nation.
Co-host, and Brother Ethan Panton, past president of the Belize Energy Workers Union in Belize, as our guest. Before we got on a break, I'm asked Brother Brother Akko about his thoughts on minimum wage, living wage, and I asked Brother Panton his 2 cents on that after listening to Brother Akko. Go ahead, Brother Panton.
Yes, good to be back again. Me, the whole issue of minimum wage is a mess. Why should you want to pay somebody less than you took their value and expect more from them? I always ask people that you have the police force, you have customs, you have immigration. Look, put it at customs for example. These people are collecting the biggest revenue from the port, the airport, and the borders. And you pay these people nickel and dime. Hence the reason why there's so many mansions in the border town that belongs to custom officers. Hence the reason for the lot of unethical behavior in the government revenue with respect to custom officers. We need to be honest with ourselves. If I'm tasked with guarding $1 million, can't pay me 50K to protect $1 million. And so the whole process of minimum wage, somebody needs to throw that away and start with something called fair wages or good wage. Because if I did a good job for you, then because you could not request it, the cost of what I did for you is priceless.
Thanks, Brother. Brother Akko, no, we have to hold ourselves accountable as workers. If workers were more knowledgeable, if workers organize in their best interest, there wouldn't be no capitalist system because we could bring it down because we hold it up. So workers have to have some level of accountability. But the truth is, I feel that because the lack of knowledge and lack of confidence, because most of the education system teach us to be workers. They don't teach us to be independent thinkers, for have your own business. Then they teach us to go work for somebody. So after all them decades of living, Brother Akko, what do you see as some solutions for workers hold for we self-accountable to make one difference in how we're treated and how we're paid?
Well, the simple answer in my view is that we have to acquire power. Frederick Douglass made this interesting quote. He said, power concedes nothing without a demand. Wanting power without sacrifice is like wanting the sea without the awful sounds of its waves. So we are not trained and taught and educated to understand power. You see, we take our power and give it to politicians every 5 years and believe that that is how it's supposed to be. But we don't understand that power is the engagement in the process of determining how we live. And so we have to develop a consciousness that allows us to acquire power without this Christian interpretation that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So while the masses believe that, the capitalists and elites don't believe that. The more power they have within the economy, the more they want. And we have a system that that trains us, conditions us actually, to take the power that we have as citizens and give it to people in the form of a so-called democratic vote. Without demanding either things like recall if somebody don't operate in our interest, or defining a system that limits the power of these people to determine our lives. Now, what I'm saying here is something like fallacy, and people will say, well, how that's going to happen and so on, right? But as Fidel Castro always would say, we have to imagine a different world. Poverty should not be normal. It should not be normalized, right? Those who believe in the Christian Bible tell the earth, the God made the earth with bountiful for everybody with water. Now we're selling water by not selling water, right? But this is what a system based on exploitation and profit making. And I'll give you a good example. A few years ago, the Chinese government made a decision to dismantle private education, okay? And to dismantle the biggest real estate company in China. And this, what they said, housing should not be for speculation. It is for people to live. And education should not be to create elites. So they dismantle private tutoring. You see? Because the Chinese government is not controlled by the capital. Now they have capitalists in China. But the government is not controlled by the capitalists. In the West, in the US, in the Caribbean, all governments are controlled by the capitalists. And they will there force these politicians to make decisions that are in their interest. This is why I said in an interview some months ago, our leaders are selected before they are elected. They are selected in the church, in the Lions, the Rotary Club, all these social organizations, the secret societies, okay? These people are selected because they represent, they're already schooled and trained to represent certain interests and other kinds of groups. And then when they get into power, because they have been selected through these groups, and we don't know this, we elect them and give them our power. So the simple answer is, we have to develop a sense of power. And for us to do that, change must come. And we must be prepared to make sacrifices, both large and small, in order to change it. And for that to happen also, a different process of education must take place.
Big
Not
respect.
just school and education, social education, civics, you know what I mean?
Big respect. We had that experience this past week, Brother Akko. You had the transportation industry or sector in Belize has never been, it was not grown by the state. It was grown by individual families across this country for years. And then last year, the government came up with this bright idea for having one PPP, public-private partnership. So the bus terminals were up on prime real estate, that what the government will contribute to this PPP partnership. And then they asked the individual private owners for come on board. They have runs to the north, the west, the south, and in Belize City. The 95% of the southern runs is run by the National Bus Company. 80% of the western runs is run by the National Bus Company. But in the north, I think that 80% of the runs are owned by the independent, the Belize Bus Association. So they own 80% of the north and 20% of the west. Now, either the north, because of our history, there are a number of Spanish speakers and a number of the cane farmers they up there. And anytime they clash with the government, they know if they come out with their machine, somebody has died in the like they're not like the rest of the country. They ain't not too much talking. They're known for come out. So now there was a conflict, and the Belize bus owners, the Belize Bus Association, came on WB last week, and they were represented by 3 melanated brothers. To my knowledge, none of them brothers got no colonial papers, name degrees, but they're very knowledgeable. They're in the industry for years, and then they make it plain. They don't want the rates go up, because they don't want everyday people take the lake. Bottom line, they meet with the state, and they sent out a press release last Saturday saying, listen, their rates were gone up, whatever the rates that we agree to, then do that after we meet and we don't agree to it. So on Saturday, them for meet with the state again, I want hour or so before they for meet with the state, they tell the state, we had a meeting to know. We did lock down the bus roads thing, come Monday, come on a genuine on a meeting. The government hurry up and had a press conference Saturday. This is at the state now. And I understand that the Minister of Transport is known to have press conference. That's not a norm under this administration. This administration usually come to the people and talk to the people and meaningful consultation. Anyways, long and short of the story, come on the morning, tires start to burn up not, buses block off traffic, no bus not move for the north, no bus not move in the city. The state did send some of the national bus company buses, but at the end of the day, and that's the way we talk about power, because the state never owned the transportation sector initially, those who did hold on to for them power, they never give it up. So now the government not used to have somebody we have say leverage like them for say, come to the table or else. And that may a perfect example of only organize people and save the people and what people power look like. End of the day, they agree to call off the strike because the government conceded to listen. We are giving the subsidy we want to ask for, well, they bargained down the subsidy we want to ask for fuel, and rates went up 50 cents as of Monday, the 4th of May, 50 cents for short stop and $1 for long stop. But you see what happened when you have people power? That the what power look like, and I don't know, I don't remember in my lifetime seeing that. But brother, the 1147 already, brother Panton, make a hear 2 cents pan a real people power versus all the talking the unions they known for the nowadays.
That is what power is all about. That is strength. People walking the walk and others talking it. These people didn't pick their fight. The fight will come to them, then they start to battle. And this is what we need to do as Belizeans to put the nation forward. The last time a group of people really came together who were not necessarily unionized, but have to be after Brother X came back from university and whole U-Bat Foundation came into existence. And the same Ronald Masters tried to disrupt that. However, even if they threw a ring and succeeded, thank the good Father that this brother continues to produce a lot of literature every day from then up to present. And so our people remain ignorant because they don't, and because, like how the conversation started initially, because we don't know from where we came. People know the sacrifice that took place to have us on this media. So they take it, like nothing. They think they are automatically entitled. We have a group of entitled citizens who does not work for what it is and who don't know who have labor to put them in that position to feel entitled.
Respect, and I'm glad you bring it up, and brother, I could bring it up before, is the strength and the power of the Black Power movement in the late 60s, moving forward into the 70s. And again, another way good for talk to people who are no different than you, brother. I could say, in the Caribbean, when it comes to the Black Power movement, Belize would be the only country we have something substantial from out of that Black Power movement, which would be our independent media house, a Mandela newspaper, Creme Radio, XTV, for make we could have their level of dialogue here, because you know who control the media, control the mind right now. So before we have to lock off today, I want to give Brother Panton the opportunity to share last words, then I'm going to Brother Akko. Brother Panton?
Well, I just want to show out respect, first of all, to yourself, XTV, the whole criminal and Mandela organization, to afford people these opportunities. Hopefully, because people don't like you, they would at least listen and be informed. Because with information, you're lost. And I want to give respect to some brothers that I met along the way. One fallen brother, Brother Winston Jones, he was the first and the founding president of the Belize Energy Workers Union. Along with him, there was Sister Derla Pryor, then now Sister Derla Steen. He was the first general secretary and served as a member of the executive until 2018, from 1981, October 1981, to when she left in 2018. So Brother Ronald Williams, he was the first treasurer, and then I will say subsequent Brother Shepard, Brother Forrest, Brother Butler, Brother Ashley Rock. These are all past presidents, and hey, the great brother to their people to me, Sean Nicholas, and my brother Butler, but yes, Marvin Mora. These people are people who work closely with myself in the union movement.
Big respect.
Love, and thanks to all.
Big respect, Brother Panton. And that important that remember we sit up on other people's shoulders of a call and name and recognize the work of them people. And those are only one sister named call Brother Panton, but that's how he said. Brother Akko.
Yeah. It was not by design. I mean, he was just so outstanding.
Yes.
You know, but it's kind of difficult to give second place. So I give she first and third for the podium. And respect to all the others who did them. Because there were a lot. I mean, there was a sister, I forget her sister, Sharon Kelvin, she had too migrated to the USA. She was very powerful, very dynamic, a force to reckon with. She was after the girl as a sister for some time.
Big respect, Brother Panton. Brother Akko, final thoughts?
So, Sister, the statement you made about the private bus owners and the demands, right? Now, what happens, a lot of the governments in the Caribbean talk about a people sector. Because there are sectors of the economy that the regular grassroots people, what is called indigenous industries. Now, to a large extent, a lot of these multinationals or foreign businesses, they're not interested in those things until it is developed by the population. And the transport sector is one. Once it develops, they come to see how they could profit from it. Because of their control of the state, they get the government sometimes to pass legislation to make them into things like Uber and those kinds of, and Lyft and all of those things. Whereas with the people sector, the indigenous industry, when the state should see this as a thing to support, the state does not support it. The state does everything to undermine it and then say the system has failed. And as soon as the regular people get out of it and the private people take it over, the state then start to lend all this support to make these things successful, and these industries no longer are in the hands of the people. That is why, as much as we discuss all of these things, the ultimate solution is that the people have to develop institutions, economic, social, political institutions that can really give them the opportunity to exercise power. Right now, we are not doing this through political parties. Political parties have failed us, right, over and over again. And we must consider new methods of political organization and new methods of economic organization if we are to advance as nations and as individuals in the Caribbean. This colonial structure and the neo-colonial structure that we inherited has failed. It has never served our interests, except when it makes compromise here and there because of our demands. And now it is clear for everyone to see that it is failing. We now have to look at new approaches, new methods, and new institutions in order to advance our civilization in the Caribbean.
Big respect, Brother Akko, Brother Panton. We had quite a bit of struggles today. I had to take a lot of deep breath. I get vexed. I don't usually get vexed, but I sure get vexed today. But give thanks. We struggled through the show today, and the conversation was timely, with May 1st being Labor Day. And we need to have more of these conversations where we hold ourselves and others, especially those in leadership, accountable, and normalize it, especially for the next generation. I want to thank our security guard, I believe it may be Shane Flowers, at XTV in the MCO studio. We have Harlan Wagner and let me get the sister's name, Jamarla Thompson. At Creme Radio, we have, I believe, Larry Guerrero, Larry G. This show should repeat at 5:30 today on XTV. Remember, you could always go to XTV Belize YouTube channel and Facebook page to listen to this program at your convenience, and share the link, share the link, share the link. want to give big thanks to Brother Ethan Panton, past president of the Belize Energy Workers Union, and our co-host, Brother Akamatota, for being with today. And I want to redirect, excuse me, forgot the Facebook page for the Belize Energy Workers for Justice and Belize Communication Workers for Justice. Go to them pages so as Belizeans you can learn more about severance, which is a legal obligation of your employer if you work for 5 consecutive years or 10 consecutive years. The law said that you should be paid, and when the employer not do it, and you're not part of a union or a union are willing to represent you, the Labor Department have that duty. Look, I drink some water. The Labor Department have that duty. And we talk about the Labor Department because that the Labor Day rally, the Labor Minister made it out there yesterday, Karim Musa, and the Labor Commissioner is Mrs. Reselia Dominguez Pat. We need to know what them people look like, so anywhere we buck them, we hold them accountable, not agreeing up with them people. They said at all if you got an issue for right to the Labor Department. Christine Perrott, for example, has written to the Labor Department. So as it relates to severance and employers not paying employees, the 2 employers right now are Belize Telemedia Limited, BTL, and Belize Electricity Limited, BEL. And there are 3 approaches to holding them accountable. There's what we call the white shirt, the Belize Communication Workers for Justice. You have the green shirt, the Belize Energy Workers for Justice, and you have as an independent Christine Perrott, retired, a former employee of BTL. 3 different approaches. So I encourage workers. You hear what Brother Panton said, Brother Panton, I never knew that we have about 16,000 what we call center workers unrepresented. That is unacceptable. So anyways, I know that 2 minutes to 12, but are good. Anything else I don't want to say, Brother Panton or Brother Echo? All right, got clear then. Remember, only organize people and save the people. Oh, next Sunday, no Sunday review. My Earth Strong is May 7th. I'll be 60 years old. I had to take some time off. So I know the Mother's Day. So in advance, big respect to people who gave birth to children, who raised children. Big respect to mothers. No Sunday review next Sunday. We return on Sunday, May 17th. Till then, only organize people and save the people. One love.
I guess it's
Respect.
Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me name is Pupa. Believe me, come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago, agreement by the slave master talking about the head on the Belize and dollar because